Kent snails hitchhiked their way to Britain with the Romans and took over the exact same time the Romans did. These little things came from the Mediterranean. When the Romans showed up around 300 AD, they brought their farming practices and the plants they loved, along with Mediterranean soil to grow them in. Kent snails were hiding in all that dirt. They came along for the ride, and once they got to Britain, they found something they absolutely loved. The soil's got high calcium, which these snails need to build their shells. Cool temperatures didn't hurt either. They just spread out everywhere they could. What's interesting is that the foods the Romans brought turned out to be popular with the Britons too. The plants kept spreading, and the snails spread right along with them. You don't typically think of snails as invaders, but these guys sure enough were. They're named after Kent, even though they're not from anywhere near it. They're Mediterranean snails, but by the time anybody got around to naming them, they'd been living there for over 1,600 years. The people who found them had no idea where they actually came from. They're simultaneous hermaphrodites. A single snail can be both male and female at the same time. When two Kent snails meet, it can take an hour to work out who's going to be what, and then they might switch roles with a different snail a couple of days later. They don't have those kinds of barriers to existence. These snails are just under an inch long, roughly the size of an acorn, too small to bother eating, which is different from the other snails the Romans brought. They've got hairy shells when they hatch, but those hairs wear smooth as they get older until the shell looks like a polished pebble. They live 12 to 18 months, but they mate from May through October. They estivate during summer heat, which is like hibernating, but for the hot season. They climb up into plants and seal themselves shut with mucus, waiting for cooler weather. The wild thing about Kent snails now is that they're doing really well in Britain and most of Europe, but they're not doing well in places like Lower Saxony in Germany. It's not surprising when you think about it. These snails are invasive there. They didn't evolve in those places, so it makes sense they'd struggle. They're well established in England, France, Vienna, the Czech Republic, Austria, the Netherlands, and Belgium. But soil composition changes in some regions, and they just don't make it.